You're tired. But not the kind of tired that goes away with a nap. Not the kind of tired that a weekend off or a change of routine can fix. This is something else. Something heavier. Something deeper. Something that sits in your chest like silence in a crowded room. Invisible but deafening. And the worst part, you don't even know how to explain it anymore. So you just call it being tired. But what if that word tired is just the name you gave to everything you've been carrying alone? Because if you're honest, it's not just about exhaustion. It's about holding too much. About waking up every day pretending you're okay when you're not. About performing your life like a play while inside something is breaking quietly. You smile, you work, you respond, you function, and people believe you because you've gotten good at hiding the storm behind your eyes. But deep down, you know, something is off. Something isn't right. Something inside you is slowly shutting down, and you're calling it just stress. But this isn't just stress. This is your soul waving a white flag. We live in a world that celebrates hustle, performance, productivity. You're expected to keep moving, keep giving, keep enduring, even when there's nothing left inside you to give. And so, you keep pushing. Because what else can you do? You've got responsibilities. People depend on you. Life doesn't stop, but you have. Not on the outside, but on the inside. You've stopped feeling joy, stopped dreaming, stopped believing that anything can actually change. And that's the kind of tired no one sees. Because this isn't about sleep, it's about a silent collapse. The kind of collapse that happens inside the soul, long before the body ever breaks. You've been holding too much for too long, carrying pain no one knows about, swallowing emotions you were never allowed to speak, brushing off wounds with fake smiles and quiet nods, pretending it doesn't hurt anymore, when it still does. You've been bleeding invisibly, and the world rewards you for it. Tells you you're strong, tells you you're resilient, but deep down, you don't feel strong at all. You feel tired of pretending to be strong, and maybe that's what your soul has been trying to show you, that what you're calling tired is actually grief. Grief for the parts of you that were never nurtured, grief for the dreams you buried, grief for all the times you needed someone and no one came. If this spoke to your heart, subscribe. There's more waiting for you. You're not done yet, and neither is your story. You didn't break, you bent, you adapted, you adjusted, you survived, but even the strongest branches snap in silence when they're never allowed to rest. You're not weak, you're just human. And you've been acting like a machine for too long. In Tolkien's world, even heroes broke under the weight of invisible burdens. Frodo didn't collapse on the battlefield. He collapsed under the pressure of carrying something no one else could see. That's you. That's what this is. The invisible weight, the spiritual fatigue, the ache that lives under the surface of I'm fine. You've been at war within yourself, but wars fought in silence are the most dangerous of all, because no one knows to come save you. And after a while, you stop asking to be saved, but not tonight. Tonight, you pause. You breathe. You admit the truth. I'm not okay. I'm exhausted, and I don't know how much longer I can keep pretending I am. And that's where healing begins. Not with a solution, not with a miracle, but with honesty. Because maybe your soul isn't trying to make you collapse. Maybe it's trying to finally bring you home, back to the part of you that doesn't want to fight anymore, back to the part of you that just wants to feel safe again, held, heard, whole. But before that can happen, there's more to face. Because behind this tiredness, behind this fog, is a wound you've never given yourself permission to touch. And in the next part, we'll go there, slowly, gently, honestly. Because the soul that's screaming for help is the same one that still remembers how to heal. You've told yourself it's nothing, just a rough patch, just life. You wake up tired, go to bed even more exhausted. You yawn through conversations. You forget things. Your chest feels heavier than usual, but still you say it's just stress, it'll pass. But it doesn't pass. And no matter how much you sleep, the tiredness stays. That's because it's not just physical. You're not sleep deprived, you're spiritually depleted. And no one told you that could happen. You learn that rest means sleep, that healing is about slowing down, that exhaustion can be cured with a break. But what no one ever explained is that your soul can get tired too. That silence can weigh more than noise. That carrying unspoken pain, year after year, starts to burn through your energy like a flame with no oxygen. That's what's happening to you. You're not just tired. You're tired of being tired, of fighting feelings you can't name, of pretending you're fine when your heart says otherwise, of pushing forward when part of you wants to stop and scream, of holding it all together while you quietly fall apart on the inside. You're not lazy, you're grieving. Grieving all the moments you've had to swallow your emotions because no one would understand. Grieving the version of yourself that was softer, more alive, before the world taught you to shut it all down. Grieving the self you had to abandon just to keep going. And grief, the unspoken kind, is one of the heaviest loads a soul can carry. Think about it. How often do you catch yourself staring off, unable to feel present? How many times do you try to enjoy something you once loved, only to find it feels empty now? How long have you been functioning instead of living? That's not laziness. That's soul fatigue. And it doesn't go away with time. It deepens. It spreads. Go until one day you wake up and you feel like a stranger inside your own skin. And still you show up. Still you put on the mask. Still you say, "I'm fine," because it's easier than explaining a pain you've never been allowed to name. But your body knows. It always does. It starts to ache in ways you can't explain. You feel heavier, slower, foggy, like your thoughts are trying to move through water, like something is draining you, drop by drop, while no one around you seems to notice. Your soul is telling you in the only language it has left, you've gone too long without being seen, without being held, without being heard. And what happens to a soul that is never given permission to feel? It shuts down. It dims. It begins to fade into survival mode. You start saying no to the things you once loved. You avoid people who once made you laugh. You feel uncomfortable in stillness, but even more exhausted in movement. This is what happens when pain is swallowed instead of released. When no one ever asked you, what are you holding inside that no one else sees? You've been carrying heartbreaks, regrets, silent traumas, not just from this year, but from years before. Maybe even from childhood. Maybe even from moments you no longer consciously remember. And just like a room gathers dust when left untouched, the soul gathers heaviness when left unheard. But here's what no one told you. You don't have to live like this. You don't have to carry all of it alone. You don't have to keep pretending that rest is enough when what you truly need is release. You need space to feel what you've avoided, to cry for what you buried, to breathe in a way that doesn't feel like survival. Your soul has been whispering this to you for a long time, in the sleepless nights, in the heavy mornings, in the disconnection, in the feeling that nothing really matters anymore. It matters. You matter. And the weight you carry isn't imaginary. It's just invisible to everyone but you. But now it's time to face it. Not all at once. Not to fix it overnight, but to begin. Because soul fatigue doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've been too strong for too long. And what comes next is not collapse. It's the return to your center, to your truth, to the version of you that doesn't live exhausted, but lives aligned. But before you can return, you must understand what's been keeping you away. And that's exactly where we'll go next, because there's something in your life draining you, and it's time to name it. You keep calling yourself weak. You look in the mirror and wonder where your strength went, how you used to handle more, feel more, do more without falling apart like this. You replay old versions of yourself, the ones that smiled easier, moved quicker, didn't flinch at every emotional wave. But now you can barely get through the day without feeling like you're about to snap. You tell yourself you've lost something. But what if you haven't lost anything? What if you're not weaker now, just more wounded? Because this isn't weakness. This is what it looks like to fight a war that no one else can see. Comment below, "I'm not weak. I'm just tired of fighting alone." Let the world see that you're still here and still breathing, still rising. Every day you wake up and wear your mask. You do what's expected. You smile when you're supposed to. You answer texts. You fulfill roles. And people think you're functioning. But what they don't see is that underneath it all, you are barely holding it together. You are not weak. You are invisible in battle. There are wounds you carry that no one ever validated. Scars from years ago that never closed properly. Voices inside your head that don't belong to you but live there anyway. Echoes of things people said when you were too young, too tired, or too scared to fight back. And yet you kept going. You showed up. Again and again. Even when you didn't know how. Even when the silence at night screamed louder than any noise during the day. You are exhausted not because you're fragile, but because you've been at war with your own pain, your own past, your own thoughts for too long. Do you know what it does to a soul to suffer in silence? It fragments. You start to disconnect from people, from joy, from purpose, but most of all, from yourself. You stop asking for help because you're tired of repeating a pain that no one seems to understand. You stop speaking because every time you tried, someone called you dramatic, sensitive, or too much. You stop feeling because what's the point of emotion if all it does is remind you that no one is really listening? So you shrink. You get quieter. Not because you're healing but because you're hiding. But here's the truth. You're not broken. You're surviving a storm you were never trained to face. No one taught you how to navigate emotional wounds that don't bleed. No one prepared you for the loneliness that comes with carrying burdens no one else can see. And no one applauded you for all the times you showed up when it would have been easier to disappear. But I see it now. The quiet courage it takes just to stay alive, to keep going, to keep breathing through panic, to keep answering the phone when your whole body wants to shut down, to keep pretending when all you want is for someone to finally say, "You don't have to be strong today. You're allowed to fall apart." In Tolkien's world, the ones who carried the greatest burdens were never the loudest. Frodo didn't weep on the battlefield. He wept in caves, in quiet corners, in moments when no one was looking. Because the real breaking never happens in front of the world. It happens in the dark, and that's where you've been, fighting in the dark, alone. But being alone doesn't mean you're weak. It means no one noticed you were hurting. And now that you see it, now that you've named it, something shifts. The pain doesn't leave, but it starts to make sense. Because suddenly you realize you're not emotionally unstable. You're chronically unheard, chronically unseen, chronically overwhelmed by a world that celebrates productivity but has no space for human fragility. But what if I told you that all of this, the pain, the silence, the fatigue, wasn't the end? What if this was your turning point, not the collapse, but the call? The moment where you finally stop blaming yourself and start seeing the truth. You're not weak. You're exhausted from carrying things no one was ever supposed to carry alone. And the only way forward now is not to keep pretending. It's to start releasing, piece by piece, guilt, shame, pressure, expectations, the voices in your head that don't belong to your soul, the armor you built to survive, but that is now crushing the very spirit it was supposed to protect. That release won't be easy. It won't happen overnight. But in the next part, we begin to take off the mask, to face the part of you that's not just tired, but screaming for permission to finally stop surviving and start healing. You've dropped hints, subtle ones, quiet ones, a sigh, "I'm just tired," a pause before saying, "I'm fine." You've left clues in your tone, in your silences, in the way you stopped talking about the things that used to light you up. And still, no one noticed. Or worse, they noticed and they dismissed it. They told you to cheer up, to get some rest, to stop overthinking, as if what you're feeling is something that can be slept off, as if this heaviness inside you is just a moment, a mood, a passing shadow, not the storm that's been swallowing your soul inch by inch. You tried to speak once, maybe more than once, but people didn't listen. Not really. They heard the words, but not the weight. They responded with advice when all you needed was presence. They called it drama when it was actually desperation. So you stopped trying. You locked your pain inside a room no one else could enter, and you called it strength. But it wasn't strength. It was isolation disguised as resilience. You're not asking for attention. You're not asking to be fixed. You're asking, in the most human way possible, to be seen. Because what you're going through isn't just sadness. It's a silence so loud that it's starting to erase your sense of self. It's the kind of silence that grows roots, that spreads, that slowly convinces you that your pain is too much, your truth too complicated, your emotions too intense for the world to hold. So you shrink, you nod, you go along. And every time someone asks how you are, you say, "I'm okay," even when you're not. And that lie, it chips away at you. You lie to protect others from your pain. You lie because the truth has never been safe. You lie because when you once told the truth, it was ignored or minimized or weaponized. So now, instead of feeling, you numb. Instead of asking, you retreat. Instead of breaking in front of others, you break in the dark. There's a reason so many people cry in the shower, in their car, in their bedroom late at night, because those are the only places where their truth is allowed to exist, where no one will call them too sensitive, where their tears don't have to be justified. You're not being dramatic, you're not overreacting. You're responding to a world that taught you it's safer to suffer silently than to be fully human. In Tolkien's stories, it was always the quiet ones, the overlooked ones, who carried the heaviest burdens. They didn't wear armor, they wore masks. They didn't fall in battle, they fell in solitude. And no one saw it coming, because they hid it well, just like you. And here's what that hiding does. It disconnects you from others, from your truth, from yourself, until eventually you wake up and don't recognize the person in the mirror. You start saying, "I don't feel like myself." But what you really mean is, I've been pretending for so long that I forgot who I really am. And if this is where you are now, on the edge of forgetting yourself, I need you to hear this. You are not too much. You are not a burden. You are not broken beyond repair. You are just unheard. And your soul is starving for someone to finally listen. The kind of listening that doesn't interrupt. The kind that doesn't offer quick fixes. The kind that says, I believe you, without needing proof. But here's the thing. Sometimes no one else gives that to you. Sometimes the world is too distracted, too shallow, too afraid of depth, and so the only one left to truly listen is you. What if instead of running from the silence, you entered it? What if instead of hiding from the pain, you sat with it like an old friend? What if your soul is not trying to destroy you, but to reintroduce you to who you were before the pretending began? The next time you feel that wave of emotion rise up, the lump in your throat, the sting behind your eyes, don't push it down. Follow it. It will lead you to something real, because beneath the silence is your truth. And your truth is where the healing begins. But there's one more thing we haven't faced. One last brutal truth. You've been surviving, but you haven't been living. Has your soul been whispering for your attention? Share the signs you've felt in silence. Someone out there will read your words and feel less alone. And the longer you stay in that numb space between existing and disappearing, the more your soul fades into shadow. And that shadow, we'll walk into it together in the next part. Because only in the shadow can we finally remember what it means to feel alive again. You've made it this far. And if you're still reading, still here, it means some part of this message, maybe a small, quiet part of your soul, has been whispering, this is me. You've been surviving. But let's be honest, you haven't been living. You've been doing what needs to be done, smiling when it hurts, nodding when you want to scream, existing in a world that rewards surface and speed, while something deep within you aches for silence, for truth, for peace. This isn't about being tired anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. This is about absence, the absence of joy, the absence of meaning, the absence of connection with others, yes, but mostly with yourself. You've been living like a ghost in your own life. And maybe the most painful part isn't what's happening around you. Maybe it's what stopped happening inside you. You stopped dreaming, stopped laughing the way you used to, stopped believing that your story could still turn around, not because you gave up, but because you were never given space to believe it could be different. Somewhere along the way, your light dimmed, not all at once, but slowly, silently, subtly, until one day you looked in the mirror and saw someone you didn't quite recognize, and you thought, maybe this is just adulthood. Maybe this is just how life feels now. But it's not. This isn't life. This is a spiritual coma, a slow, quiet disconnection from everything sacred inside you. And the most terrifying part? You almost got used to it. You almost let go of the idea that life could feel full again, that you could feel alive, not just functional, that you could breathe without the weight on your chest, that you could wake up excited, not anxious, not numb, not dreading the day before it begins. But you're here now, and that means something in you still remembers. It remembers what it felt like to laugh from your belly, to feel wonder, to believe in something bigger than survival, to look forward, not just back. And yes, the pain is still there, the loss, the weight, the ache, but so is the spark, the small flicker that refuses to die no matter how long you've been in the dark. That's your soul, and it's still alive. Wounded? Yes. Exhausted? Definitely. But dead? Never. And maybe the very reason you've been falling apart is because your soul refused to let you keep living a life that wasn't true. It broke what needed to break. It pulled away what was fake. It removed what numbed you, not to punish you, but to wake you. And now here you are, standing on the edge of something new, not because everything is fixed, not because you're healed, but because you're finally awake enough to begin. You don't need to become someone new. You need to return to who you were before the world convinced you to abandon yourself, because you are not your wounds. You are not your fatigue. You are not the story that was written for you in survival mode. You are what survives after everything else falls away. You are what's left when the pretending ends. You are what rises. And I want to thank you for having the courage to go this deep, for reading these words with an open heart, for sitting with the parts of yourself that most people run from. Your soul is listening. Your healing has already begun. And even if no one around you understands, you are not alone anymore. We've walked through the shadows together. And now, step by step, we return to the light. Thank you for being here. Now take a breath and let your soul know I'm ready to come home.